David watches me. I call him David. He has been watching me. In the last month or so, I've seen horrors beyond my own understanding. Growing up, I've been a massive fan of the horror genre. When I was young, before I could remember everything clearly, my mother would take me and my older sibling to the library to get Goosebumps CDs. I must have been no younger than 3, maybe 4. This is what my mother told me anyways. But that is neither here nor there. This is just to say I was not easy to scare growing up. I still am not easy to scare. I was born in Montana on the 3rd of March 2003, and after I turned 4 or 5, my dad had to get a different job as the housing crisis had begun. He had no college degree or any experience that would be considered worthwhile, so he would take what he could get. That would lead us to move down into Sheridan, Wyoming. Sheridan is just under the Montana border, with a couple thousand people living there. We moved here because of the grandparents on my mom's side. They moved here way back, raising both my mom and uncle in this small town. With the help of that family, my dad got a job working as a teller for a bank. Not the most lucrative way of making money, but a way to make money nonetheless. And while this move to bumfuck nowhere did not affect me, my older sister was devastated. I had no school friends. I was just in preschool. My older sister, on the other hand, who had been in elementary school for some time, cried the whole car ride. My younger sister, born 3 years after me, did not even know what was going on. For me, everything was fine for years, despite my family having no money. I had the whole school experience with things such as puppy love, after-school activities, and spending time with friends. On my birthdays or Christmas, after I started to understand the financial situation my parents were in, I tried not asking for expensive toys or gadgets, in an attempt to make life easier for my parents, and for me to be less disappointed. The 5 of us were happy. Of course, all the other kids my age thought I was crazy. I didn't have a phone, the only console I had was a Wii. The Wii U had come out. And all the food we ate was great value or something similar to Walmart brand food. I was not popular, but overall I was well liked. And I would continue to embrace this life I built until middle school, 6th to 8th grade in Sheridan, when my first encounter happened. I remember it being winter, as snow was everywhere. The house we had in Sheridan was walking distance from the middle school. Back in those days, the neighbor kids, my older sister and I, would walk to and from school every day. It wasn't rare for one of us to stay a little longer to talk to a teacher or go do something else completely. We were all independent individuals. Hell, one of the neighbor kids only walked to school with us and not once walked back with us. During the winter, the group largely resembled that of the kids from A Christmas Story during the colder months, minus being chased. One day I would stay at school a little later than usual, and I had told that group to leave me behind. My English teacher wanted me to finish a project I had. She was worried as I was terrible with doing homework. I don't exactly remember if I finished or not. Probably not. I was a bit airheaded and typically forgot what all happened at school by the time I walked home. By the time I was outside walking home, the sun had begun to set. Not too unusual as it gets dark around 5 during the winter months. This meant if you had extracurriculars in this time, you almost always went home as the sun was setting. Something I didn't do often at the time, meaning this was a first to me. It wasn't eerie or anything, just a different time in the same place. The night sky was clear, but the air was freezing. My glasses would fog up as I breathed, trying to contain the heat leaving my mouth by having my coat cover the lower half of my face. The route I took home brought me through Kendrick Park, a lovely place in the spring, summer, and fall, but dull and lifeless in the winter. There's this path that goes up this hill that splits a miniature forest in half. This was before they built an improved path below the parking lot of the school to keep the hill in place. That wooded area always seemed much more vast and full as a kid than they actually were. We'd play in them often, tag and such, for hours, never seeming to reach any ends. Anyways, I was marching down this path, careful not to slip on the ice. There were, or are, lights that line the path illuminating the snow ahead of me. And of course, like your typical horror movie, there was a shuffling in the trees. That night was the first night I saw David. That is what I called him. That is what I still call him. David was a tall, nude man that terrified me. I'm not sure of his motives, but I'd say he was hunting me at times. It wasn't until I reached the bottom of the hill that I turned around to see him. He had no genitals. Thank fuck. But he was just standing there in this cold fucking weather. No clothing, no fur, just the mist being expelled through his mouth. I could only stare into his dark eyes, the pupils seeming to never end. It felt like an eternity, but it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes before I started to run. I ran, a began to sob, afraid to turn around, stumbling every so often as the weight of my backpack made it difficult to keep my balance. I'd make it home that night. I'm not sure if David even chased me. Crashing through the front door, my mom came to comfort me quick after hearing me cry. I don't remember much after that. According to my older sister, I blurted out something about a naked tall man, whose eyes were not his own. Mom, practically shitting herself, my sister's words, called the cops, but they didn't find anyone, or they couldn't find anyone. My mom was afraid, mad, confused. She would tell Dad what I said once he got home, and eventually even my grandfather caught wind of what happened. The two of them would go out and search for the cops without much success. The man was gone. I would later tell my sister about David. She had the idea of giving him his name to make it easier for me to tell her. I don't know if she believed me at the time, but she was a born skeptic like everyone in my family. Her reaction was one of confusion. But after that night, she would always walk closer to me when she could. She probably thought I just saw a man, just like my parents and police. The neighbor kids had took note of the police from the previous night. They would ask my sister and I, neither of us knowing what to say. I wouldn't say anything. My sister would speak for me, lying, saying that I found a lost dog or something and the police were just picking it up as it ran out the front door. Something like that. They didn't push for more details. I wouldn't see David again for months. Maybe over a year? I can't remember. Those details seem to be faded with time. I'd almost completely forgotten about David, but the fear from my first experience followed me even after the memory disappeared. I still remember the heat of the day from the second encounter with David. It was summer. I couldn't tell you the day or the exact time of when I saw him, as when you're a kid without ambition, summer passes you by so quick you lose track of time. I had a friend with me this next time, Justin. He was just like me, a kid with no ambition, little money, and doing whatever he can to entertain himself. The two of us would go around on our cheap bikes, buying snacks with change found in couches, watching TV, playing video games, swimming, etc., etc. On this day, we threw ice cream in a blender and made milkshakes with great value ice cream. It was a typical summer day for us until Justin got bored of the YouTube video that had auto-played. Justin would look at me and ask, "Did you know we have a basement?" I didn't, and I was intrigued. Justin lived in a house with a family above his home. I just assumed that there might have been a family below us if there was a basement. Justin would then ask, "Do you want to go down there and explore?" "Of course," I say, "of course." We had to go out the back door. The heat was beating down on the two of us. The basement hatch was just to the left of the back door. Justin opened it up, and we both went down, Justin leading me. There was no light. I suppose the light bulbs that were down here had burnt out years ago, someone leaving them on and never coming back down. It was clear that nobody had been down here in a while. Thankfully, Justin had brought a flashlight with him. There were no doors, only concrete imitating doorways. The cold layout of the basement resembled a home that lay above it, with walls and corners. Other than the rats and lone boxes, the basement was empty. The two of us would scrounge around the loose boxes, careful not to disturb any rats. They were largely filled with garbage. Many of the boxes were filled with old clothes, creepy dolls, and even some jewelry that looked expensive. When we came across anything that looked like treasure, one of us would cram the thing into one of our pockets. Justin found a ball and we passed it to each other in the dark for a minute before resuming our search. Lots of boring things. Old papers we did not want to read, and dusty books were quickly unpacked. The basement now looked like it was robbed. I mean, depending on how you look at it, we did rob it. "What the fuck?" Justin would scream. I would turn around, going to see what Justin was swearing over. David. He was blocking the way out. My blood ran cold. That winter, from several months before, suddenly flooded my thoughts, the cold feeling from that night returning to my face. I now have a better look at this thing. Using the false doorways as a reference, this thing was taller than the typical doors in a house, having to slouch to fit in the damn basement. It had thin hair that was illuminated by the sunlight coming from the only exit, a light that I now so desperately wanted to feel. And its eyes. Its fucking eyes. The pupils filled the entire eye, making them pitch black. Neither me nor Justin could be brought to move. A minute or two goes by of silence. Justin will make a slow inhale. "Who the fuck are you? What do you want?" Justin would scream, breaking the silence. The thing fucking smiled, slowly but noticeably. Shit, 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 shit. Without taking my eyes off of this thing, I reach for something, anything within a box near me. I grab an old picture frame and stand up once again. I was ready to throw whatever I grabbed at David. Justin began to breathe faster, beginning to panic. Leave us alone! Fuck off, you freak! Justin tossed an entire box, this one filled with old clothing we did not want. The box would fall short, coming to the thing's feet. David looked at it. Every move David made was slow, painfully slow. David picked up something from the pile that spilled out of the box. The two of us stopped breathing, waiting for him to attack or defend. Something. But the thing, David, left. Slowly. Without warning, without noise. The two of us just stood there, unable to move in fear that he was waiting for us. I broke my focus to look at Justin. He looked back. Hey. I broke the silence, hoping and praying that I didn't just call the creature back to us. Yeah, Justin responded, voice shaking. Let's go to my house. The two of us ran up the stairs, slamming into the back door, grabbing whatever. We got on our bikes and left. We did not speak, not until we were at my home. We acted as if nothing had happened. Justin would spend the night, and the two of us stayed up late into the next morning. Justin would move to his grandfather's a day later. A nice place just out of town. I'd ask about this later in life. Apparently something happened to the family above him overnight. His mom was the one who sent him to his grandpa, and she did not tell him why until he was an adult. Justin and I would still hang out. We arguably hung out more now. I'd practically spend the entire weekend over at Justin's grandfather's with Justin. Being close enough to town as it isn't a whole ordeal to get a ride, but just far enough out that we could do even more things. All those homes all have large backyards, large enough to do miniature camping trips. Being outside of town meant we could have large fires, fireworks, etc. Justin would end up getting a BB gun. While we never shot at any animals, we would practice our aim shooting these makeshift targets. The targets we set up were on this dingy shed. We would talk about the basement one day, the weekend before school started. Do you know what it was? The question came from Justin. I wanted to play dumb, but immediately knew what he was talking about. What? The thing that trapped us in the basement. Justin paused. You did not scream. Did you, I don't know, see him before? Once. Did he follow you to my house? I'm not sure. I shot Justin's BB gun, missing the target entirely. I handed Justin his gun for his turn. Have you seen him since then? I asked. Maybe. It's like I'd see him standing in the corner of the room, but it's just a shirt hanging up. Justin shivered, recalling this memory. Let's forget about him. David, I tell Justin. That's what I call him. Why David? Why did your mom call you Justin? Justin fired his shot, one ring off from a bullseye. Dunno. I call him David for the same reason your mom calls you Justin. Because, well, that is just how things go. I pause again, lining up my shot. I don't know, I'm just a kid. I shot a bullseye. Not long after this conversation, David would come to see me. Justin was in Minnesota with his grandfather, going on a trip to visit family. It was the first weekend since school started. I wasn't used to the school schedule yet, so I was staying up late watching Adult Swim or whatever was on that late. I ended up falling asleep in my living room. The couch I was sleeping on was under the window that was facing towards the street. The window has curtains, but I left the curtains up after closing the window. I wasn't thinking. The TV was on the other side of the room. If someone wanted, they could watch whatever Adult Swim show was on along with me. But alas, our TV had this automatic turn-off system so that after an hour or so it would turn off. Means the poor street folk couldn't watch our TV without me. I was dreaming. I forget about what. It doesn't matter. But there's this tapping I hear in my dream. Well, I know now that the tapping wasn't in the dream. The room was almost silent. Darkness was overwhelming. My eyes were adjusted to the dim-lit room. The only light being from the moon. I didn't move my body. I was tired. I had my eyes half open and taking in the room around me. About to close them when I fully opened my eyes. I hadn't gotten up yet. I shuffled to get up, but that's when I saw David. His reflection in the black screen TV. I froze. My gaze was locked onto David's reflection. He was grinning. His smile was unnaturally large tonight. His eyes were fixated on me, looking down on me. I was defenseless, afraid, and unable to move. I watched this reflection for hours, literal hours this time. Every 10 or so minutes counting 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3, starting back at 1 again every time he tapped on the glass. About the second hour in, I had to pee. I ended up pissing my pants. The wet stain in my pants was uncomfortable and it stunk. I know Mom and Dad would be pissed about me pissing on the couch, but I couldn't be bothered with that seemingly pointless thought right now. Right now, I needed to not move. Another hour would go by. 18 window taps an hour, I assumed. 3,600 seconds. The dread I felt was stronger than the need to sleep. Another hour would go by. Then another hour of this painful counting, of this tapping routine. And after another 30 minutes, about 6:30, the man frowns. His expression was angry. The anxiety I felt while watching him leave was immeasurable. Once I was confident he was gone, about 5 minutes later, after he faded from the TV, I ran into my bedroom. I threw off my pajamas and underwear, walk into the room, and pass out on my bed. My dad was furious about the piss. It was about 2 p.m. when I woke up. I would exit my room with a dirty towel around my waist. And while heading towards the shower, my dad would stop me. "Why does my couch smell like pee?" I was ready to tell him, but only after I showered. Could I please go shower first? I can explain it when I'm clean. "Are you hungover? Are you doing drugs? What drugs are you doing?" But I had a mix of fury and concern. I ignored his questions for now. He allowed me to head into the bathroom, seeing how little I was dressed. I would have to explain it. He wouldn't let go of this if I didn't. The water from the shower head felt amazing. I washed away all the sweat and piss sticking to me. To be in a room with no windows for David to peek into gave me relief. I'd washed everything that day, hair to toes. The water helped wake me up, bringing me out of the drowsy state I was in. I would finish my shower, put clean clothes on, and meet my dad right as I exit the bathroom. I did not know what to tell him. I know I didn't do drugs that day, but what part of the night was believable? An impossibly tall man who had black eyes watched me sleep? I tried to explain what I saw. Thankfully, he half believed me. He believed that there could have been a man at the window last night, but he also had me drug tested. The results came back negative for all drugs they tested for. My parents officially were concerned now. This is the second time, to their knowledge as I had yet to bring up the basement incident, that I brought up David, this creepy nudist who had a thing for their son. We had no security at the time, nothing to prevent a break-in or any sort of crime from happening. That is when they started to take their jobs more seriously. My mom was hired as a substitute teacher. It helps pay for small luxury things like on-brand food. My dad eventually got promoted. A lot. Even though he did not have a college degree, he took personal time to study how banking and loans work. This study eventually got him a job giving loans to people who want to buy houses and cars and such. It was after one of his many promotions Dad went to buy security cameras. That would be the last I saw of David in my teenage years. I couldn't tell you why. Maybe David has an understanding of modern technology. Maybe he got bored of me. But just because I didn't see him, doesn't mean he had stopped visiting me. However, it was January earlier this year. I'd been looking through old photos. I hadn't thought of David since I was 13 all those years ago. I'm of legal drinking age now. 10 whole years. As of now, me and my girlfriend were planning on moving in together. I was getting boxes filled with stuff I thought I needed, looking through my old stuff. I found some old photos from my teen years. Some were Polaroids. Some were printed from one of those Walmart kiosks. It was nostalgic looking at me and Justin back in those years. There was a photo of the day I first met my girlfriend, and another after I had my first drink. Then there was a photo of the mountain trip me, Justin, and some others had. It was Justin's grandpa who took us and who took the photo. We were 16 at the time. There were 2 other boys, Brandon and Sam. The photo was taken on a Polaroid, but there were 5 figures in the photo. I didn't think much of it until minutes thinking about who all was there. How the fuck did I miss this? The memories of David came back. The snow, the basement, the reflection. There were more photos, some where David was right fucking next to me. The bastard never left me alone. The photos I had went up until my 21st birthday, and checking my phone I had some photos with him just last Christmas. The Christmas was just last month. My girlfriend came into the room, concerned. "What's wrong, baby?" "Look at this photo." It was the photo from the mountain trip. "What's up with it?" "If Doug, Justin's grandpa, took the photo, and Justin, Sam, and Brandon are in the photo with me, who is that?" I point to the figure. She was worried. It was written on her face, but she did not say anything before I started showing her all the other photos. One for my birthday, our anniversary, and even one for my grandpa's funeral, Dad's side. "I don't know." Her voice was faint compared to her normal volume. What was she supposed to know? Her boyfriend had gone crazy. I look around my room, pushing things around. I break some things as opening the curtains in my room and looking out the window. He was there. His face was almost pressed up to the window, just like last time. I didn't know what to do. My girlfriend shrieked seeing the man there, quickly scurrying out of the room. She called 911, explaining the situation. My mom heard from the living room and came running in. It all happened so fast. Mom pushed me to the side. Bang, 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 bang! 4 shots rang through the house. My mom had bought a pistol, after the financial situation improved, of course, but she never forgot what I said. The experiences I had at 13, she was ready for this day. David gave an animal-like screech, running away. I got up in time to see him disappear into the night. The cops would question the 3 of us, asking my mom to see the security footage. The footage was corrupted, from minutes before I opened my curtain to right after David left. I spent these last few months afraid, not sure what to do next. I would stay inside for long periods of time. I thought she would leave me, but apparently my girlfriend loves me more than I thought, helping me go through these last months. But I've been inside for too long now. I hate having to be taken care of. I need to get my life back in order. I'm going to go around asking about my situation around town, bringing it up to extended family, etc. I hope David had died to the bullets, but just in case, I'm asking if anyone has had a similar experience. Any advice or clues as to what I'm dealing with is appreciated. Who's afraid? So, okay. We need to go through some. We need to cover some stuff here. So I'm going to start with the positives because I think that's usually the best place to kind of start. I like the story. I think the David himself, the creature, weird man person thing, that's a great idea. Kind of weird, kind of really bizarre, freaky, gives off a level of pedophile vibes and shit like that. But I guess he's just kind of a creepy stalker dude. It mainly sounds like he's only really stalking our protagonist. Not entirely sure why, because he follows him for like his entire life. It's quite confusing when you really think about it, because we don't know why. I mean, clearly he's just some kind of a creep, isn't he? That's what I've ultimately gathered from this, because I mean he's watched him essentially his entire life, and nobody saw or caught. I don't know. Okay. The story's it's rough. The story is rough. This is what I would expect for somebody who they like watching scary things, and oh my god, I've seen like 3 scary movies, and I think they're amazing, and I don't hate that. I totally understand that, but you can tell there's a lot of grammar problems. There's a lot of like misused words. There's details in random places that don't really have a need. Like this whole the big one for me was probably the fact that they love to mention how the family has great value brand compared to on-brand food, which doesn't make sense either because it'd just be branded food. Anyway, the fact is, it's just really weird. But then you also bring up like the family. You kind of give a good level of detail, backstory. A lot of the other people aren't super relevant, but whatever. So it's not really an issue. But I love how early in the story we talk about basically you've got this insanely good memory where you do remember very specific things. Like you literally say, the day you're born. You're talking about the places you lived, the things that happened to you in your youth. You remember the specific first encounter with David, but then you don't really remember all the details about the second encounter with David, and you make it sound like you're this. You make the protagonist sound like they are this incredibly humble and passionate and caring child. Before they even reach the 6th grade, they're like super aware of their life, and there's so many things that just make you feel like this was a fantastic writing exercise that probably gets submitted to school. But yet again, this is a rough draft. This is not final draft material. This is like, you got a lot of story points, you got a lot of good things, you got some interesting details, you've also got things that don't need details, but then you've also got stuff that has no details and just kind of doesn't make any sense, and things get a little all over the place. And it really takes you out of it, because the whole point of this story should be about, obviously, their encounters with David. It should definitely be a fair amount of emphasis about the David thing. I think another one that really kind of confused me a lot is that the fact that this kid who isn't afraid of things and safe inside their own home still gets so afraid by David peering at them through the window, right? At night, watching Adult Swim. Oh, you're so hardcore. Irrelevant details, you know. But the fact is, they're so afraid. They're so afraid while they're inside their own home. And at this point, they've had at least 1 or 2 encounters with David, which have not resulted in anything negative or scary. It's very obvious David doesn't have anything on his person to maybe break through a window. And I know some people might be like, oh, he might break it with his fists. And it's like, well, yeah, technically that could happen. But we haven't seen David do anything violent. We aren't aware that he does anything violent, right? So he's creepy as hell, you know? So it's just, you're so afraid of this person, this creature, whatever you want to call him, that you do a weird counting system, and somehow by just recounting Mississippis, you go for hours. Somehow you're aware that hours have passed so many times based on your weird counting system. And you're so afraid that you decide, you know what? I'm going to piss myself. Instead of going to a bathroom or maybe closing the curtains, calling for my parents, maybe grabbing the phone, calling the police, or anything else. If you're watching Adult Swim, right, you clearly have enough level of sense, or we would hope, probably not, that you would be able to react to it in a better way. Now, if you were at a friend's house, okay, that is a bit more scary, because you're in less control, but you're in your own house. You're in your own house. You know where everything is. You know how essentially everything works. It's just silly. It really... And then, sadly, quite a lot of the sentences and the words, it got tricky to read. I don't know. A fair bit of it wound me up. I'm not going to lie. But it's just because it became difficult to read. But, I mean, besides that, I liked this idea of David. I thought that was a good creepy element. It is also weird that, you know, so clearly they've had pictures taken, right? And as they even said, you know, they pick them up either from Polaroids, which you don't get the picture immediately, but it does print out, and after, you know, it's anywhere from like 5 to 20 seconds, you can see what's on the Polaroid. And they've also got ones that they picked up from clearly Walmart kiosks, Walgreens, whatever. But they have so many pictures from their life so they've obviously had pictures taken from, let's say, 13 years old up to 21, 22, even apparently 10 years past the legal drinking age, which if we're assuming this is a U.S. person based on the information we were given. So from like 13 to 30, right? They've obviously had pictures taken, and they keep a hold of them. And yet, for some crazy reason, in these pictures which have been developed, he's like never seen them before. Because how would you have never even recognized, even in one of the pictures, that David was there? Or maybe somebody else. You're telling me nobody else has seen any of these pictures? It'd be different if it was one picture. But they make it sound like there are multiple pictures they go through that David is there. And nobody said anything. Nobody did anything otherwise. and your mom randomly has a pistol at the end and decides to it's one of those where you cherry pick the parts of things that you like the sound of, you try to put them all together in one story and hope it all fucking sticks. But there's the logic goes out the fucking window. It's a real shame. It's a real shame because I like this David creature. I thought it's a really good idea. It's just a shame the rest of the story logic doesn't work. And then also, so they're planning on moving in with their girlfriend, and oh my god, after looking at all these pictures, realizing, oh my god, David, he's been following me my whole life. Oh my god, that's crazy. I can't believe nobody else has even seen that. Right? Even not taking the pictures, but clearly if David's been following him basically his entire life, you're telling me nobody else saw that in well over 10 years. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make any sense. It'd be different if he was the only one who could see David. That would at least make more sense. But we know David can be seen by other people, so that still doesn't work. And then when they open the curtains and, oh my god, David is there in broad daylight, looking in through the window like he did years and years ago. We're assuming you're still in the same house that this first happened before. And it doesn't make sense because you're telling me that, let's say he's been doing this for, I don't know, even a week. Let's say David's been doing this for only a fucking week. You're telling me none of the neighbors that you have are noticing this naked man with no genitalia is always going up to your windows and just standing there staring. Nobody's called the cops on this dude. There's so many things that just don't make sense. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't want to be super harsh. It really does take you out of any immersion. It does make it hard to digest, and it sucks. It sucks a lot. And I don't want to make you feel bad about it. I don't want to make you feel like this is the worst story ever. I don't think it's that. I don't think it's the worst story ever. Definitely not. Oh god, are you kidding me? I've definitely read some really bad ones. Ones that I might not even cover on this channel bad, right? Like I might do like a whole separate segment kind of thing maybe at one point and just really wind myself up. That'd be kind of funny, I'm sure, but I'd lose my sanity, but do it. Anyway, that's not important. That's not important. Fact is, you had something here, which means you've got the potential. If this is something you want to keep doing, you could do it. It's just a little bit more tidying up and proofreading and things like that, and maybe a level of logic's got to be applied. Just a couple little notes. That's all. That's all I'm saying. But David was a great concept. You're onto something. Very good. This has been Nate at Night. I'm going to shut the fuck up now. Before I leave. Before I just completely lose my voice. Oh, God. Let me know down below what you thought of David. I thought David was a creepy thing. It reminds me of like Cheer Bear, but in like a different kind of a way. Like a different level of creepy, but similar creep factor. If some of you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, we'll see you for whatever's next. Take care. Thank you so much to my YouTube members and Patreon members for all the love and support. It's thanks to people like you that we can keep growing.